Well, so why that's what draws me to the experience is that people
Being
sitting
an
at the table, to being an ambassador, but also I get the pleasure of seeing that it went to the right place.
Right place. That's right.
I get to see the end happen, and it's brilliant. Right. It's beautiful. You know,
it's a way almost. It's a little bit like playing God, a little bit with the finality of a thing. You know, you move it right into the place.
I think of it more as like the angel at the gates, but
right.
You know?
But no, it's kind of like the movie, not at all a good movie, but The Adjustment Bureau, where they're trying to help this guy along his path, or It's a Wonderful Life, or something, where you're like, this is really the decision you need to make. Right. You know, it's kind of like that. When someone looks at you and they say, "What should we drink?" and you say, "I can see that this is you, and I know what I have here, and I'm gonna
put the two of you together,
put those two things together,
and then I'm gonna watch it happen."
You're a matchmaker in a way, and you're not there to screw it up. You know, you're not there to say, like, this would be bad for you. You know, you're there to make it happen for both sides.
It's a real pleasure.
And it is terrible to see a great wine go to the wrong person who doesn't understand it as a great wine for whatever reason. Right. And you want to prevent that as well. So it's,
Well, I mean, that is a concern, I guess, to some extent, only because if it is a great wine and it gets drunk by somebody who doesn't really get it or enjoy it, it's a damn shame. But more importantly, I'm there to find the great wine that is right for that person. And that's the function. That's exactly. Right. I think of it as less preventative and more more.
You're enabling. You're enabling.
Yeah, exactly. I'm enabling good times, man.
So I have to say, the service aspect of Danielle, when I worked here, was just so impressive, and still is by all accounts. And one of the things I realized that was happening, and it took me a while to realize what was happening, was that the wine list was being used as a function of the service. In other words, that there was a level of inclusivity about what was there, that people could find something that was going to suit their taste, and it wasn't the kind of program that said, if you don't get it, you can't dine here. Right. Do you find that's still the case, and is that still important?
I strive to make sure. That is very important to me, and it's very easy to fall off that path, so it's very much something that I take seriously and think about a lot.
So it's not like, hey, if you don't get it, that's your problem, and you can be.
I want to have something for everybody. I mean, we have wines from everywhere, virtually everywhere. The Southern Hemisphere being a nice chunk of it. American wines that I love, American wines that I wouldn't drink myself, but I know that people love.
Sure,
we've got it all.
So that ability to say yes and make someone happy and comfortable.
The scale, and again, the scale of the restaurant and the scale of the program is what allows me to do that, and I'm very lucky to have that, because if I give that book to somebody on the floor and I don't have the one bottle that they were looking for, I tend to ask people about one in the conversation, especially if I can tell initially that their vocabulary for explaining what they want isn't the same as mine, or isn't.
Sometimes it's what's not said.
What's not said is what I'm looking for. But then very often I just say, well, what do you like to drink? Right. Give me a name of a wine, and that I can use as a dipstick. And if I don't have that, then in 2,500 selections on the list, I probably have something. And so that's why I'm very lucky that I have a lot to play with.
And what are some of the other things that are really, in your own drinking patterns, really drawing you in right now? You mentioned obviously a huge fan of German Riesling.
Yes.
Love Burgundy, like the wines of
Champagne. I'm a big lover of champagne. I kind of wish I would drink more champagne. My problem is I have very expensive taste and very small budgets.
So does that mean you like it a little more mature?
I like more mature champagne. I also, in general, I like young champagne as well. Mm-hmm. I like very, very focused styles. The Riesling Chablis versions of champagne. I love Blanc de Blanc that are super mineral. Cramont, one of my favorite villages. Outside of Champagne, I've been really excited about the Loire for years, just because of the value that it offers. And in summer, I just don't stop drinking Sancerre Rosé. It's like my favorite thing in the world. I'm not a huge lover of Sauvignon Blanc. I actually kind of dislike it most times. So there are obviously some wines made from Sauvignon Blanc that are great. But
I'll take the baton.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't have any to give you. But Pinot Noir from Sancerre is so delicious, and made in the right style, and made pink on a nice hot summer day is pretty awesome. I've been getting back into Gamay and Cabernet Franc reds from light, fresh, energetic, elegant.
Make you feel
lively.
More
they give you a little
vibrancy, the real sense,
which I really like. I've been tasting a lot of stuff from the south of France because the quality levels for years it was kind of like plonk city down there, but the quality
Sure,
levels
well,
are so high now.
Simone was holding the candle.
Sure.
And Ovet.
For sure, and for the most
Gobi.
part, it was the same for a long time. But exactly, but for instance, Gobi is not. It's an old property, but they haven't been that well recognized. I first tasted Gobi less than 10 years ago. You know,
right.
Bandol producers that are making these really gorgeous wines.
I think some of the best value you can find is Old Bandol right now.
If you can find it, it's difficult to find actually. I just saw a cellar with a bunch of Old Bandol, and that was like the first thing on my list of stuff I wanted. In the Rhone, I've been drinking a lot of Cornas because I think you still get so much character and it tends to be a little less expensive. And it's a pleasure to drink young, which isn't always the case for Hermitage.
Well, if it's Allemand or something, you know, I mean, yeah.
Right.
And this is a restaurant I associate with great Cornas. You know, a non-sulfur cuvee from Allemand, we had 3 vintages when I worked. It was incredible.
Actually, when that was the case, I was oftentimes coming here to drink them because you guys were the only ones that had them, and the wines were so good. I wish I had more Allemand for sure, but
there's a cabal of great growers there. Or have
unbelievable.
You know, it used to be a lot of Versailles at this restaurant. It used to be a lot of Clap. I don't know.
Yeah, we have our big focus in Cornas is Clap. That's the bulk of what we have. We have some older Vosges. We have young Allemand because it disappears.
Sure.
It's hard to find and hard to keep.
So what are some of the things that have changed over the years? Now, you know, Jean-Luc Ledoux was a legendary sommelier in New York, really so associated with wine here at this restaurant. We've
and a great palate and a great
palate, great ability to communicate.
Truly, a guy who loves wine.
Really cared about wine, loved wine. I remember
that was the reason he did it.
When we sat down, he said, "You love wine, right?" And that's all he wanted to know.
That's cool.
That was all he wanted to know.
I want to know if people love wine and they can open bottles.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I screwed that up several times. That's broken several corks here. But so, you know, you're here after a progression of great sommeliers. What are some of the things that have changed a little bit, just beyond the level of selections? I mean, have you added accents to the program? Are there things you're excited about?
Well, yes. I mean, for instance, there was a very limited selection from Germany that was only fruity wines and sweet wines. That's grown immensely, and
a passion of yours that you've been able to translate into the restaurant.
The Rhone was very heavily built up with young vintages. I've kind of sourced some older wines and wines from Versailles, wines that aren't around anymore. A few bottlings from Gentas d'Hervieux, for example, and Goroti. These are things that are hard to find.
Very hard to find.
And once they're gone, they're gone.
It's gone forever.
Indeed, it's difficult. And that's always frustrating as a wine lover. It says, well, why did these people have to drink all this stuff before I could get to it? In terms of the service of the restaurant, I've been working very hard to make sure that, I mean, we have a fairly young team. I'm geriatric on our wine team. I'm by far the oldest guy.
But you know, I find a lot of 4-star level restaurants, young team.
It's great. It takes the energy. It takes a lot of energy. So it helps
takes a lot of energy. It's a young man's game in a way.
And that's important too because we bring a freshness. I mean, my staff is so excited about wine.
Exactly.
It comes across in such a huge way. And then the conversation between the chef and the sommelier in creating the experience, as I think it's always been here, but it's something that takes development for sure and takes time. I've gotten to know the chefs a lot more over the years and vice versa. But the one thing that I think is very important, and this is something that surprised me so much, the restaurant director and the servers and especially the chefs, is that they never really got a chance to taste a lot of wine in the past. And so I've really expanded that. I mean, we do a tasting with the front of the house staff every week.
You do.
We taste wine every week. And we're constantly talking about how to taste wine in terms of structure as a professional, to really think about wine and be able to plan it into an experience.
Sure.
And on the other side, bringing great wines to the chef to taste so that he understands why it's important to up the level of acidity in certain dishes, or consider how tannins are going to taste, you know.
So making a wine culture.
Exactly.
Not just a wine list.
Well, maintaining a wine culture that's expansive and cohesive.
Sure.
You know?
At every level of the restaurant.
Except for the artichoke level, where every chef puts artichokes on everything, no matter how many times I try and explain that to them.
When spring comes around and the artichokes and the avocados come around.
I often write menus with the chef for wine dinners, and at the end of like every dish he's like, yeah, and how about maybe we'll just shave some artichoke on top. I'm like, yeah, just
you're not hearing me. You know.
He's just doing it to push my
Right. He's just giving you a hard time. Well, that's interesting. You know, one of the things that I found about at Daniel. There's just so many staff that it, in a way, had its own separate. It was like a large city, and it had its own cultures and inside.
It's hard to get the staff engaged and excited. One of the fun things I do now is after doing educations, I'll do testing to see if they were paying attention. But rather than do traditional testing, I actually stole this idea from a guy I used to work with at Per Se, where he took I never really watched a lot of television, but he took like the idea of a game show. So I split the team in two, and then they come and they like compete against each other in a quiz show type format. And
that sounds like a great
count
idea.
up points and the such. It's super fun. You know,
that's a really great.
Every time I do it, I do a different kind of buzzer.
Yeah, you got a different.
I'm always trying to make the buzzer situation better without actually buying anything. You know? One time I frustrated the heck out of this waiter because my idea was, you know, we have one of those coiled candle holders. Yeah. So my idea was that they had to put a cork into the candle holder, and if they got it in first, then they got to answer the question. This guy knew the answer to every question, but he was so slow. He was so mad. I thought he was going to kill me.
Oh man. Oh man.
Well, you got to do fun stuff like that, and besides, you know, tasting wine and then just talking about it isn't really interesting for everybody.
Right.
So I want to get people excited and make sure that they're having fun with it.
That sounds like a great idea.
It's important to me that the staff is having fun doing this, because this is a fun job. This is like this is a fun experience. It's hard work, but the reason to do it is to do it for fun.
So what are some of the other things? I mean, how are you dealing with a large book? How many bottles of wine do you have on the list in terms of selections on the list? 2,001,
2,200.
And you're backing that up with what, 10,000 bottles, 15,000 bottles?
15 to 20, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes up and down actually substantially. Because I don't exclusively buy things if I can have continuity or anything like that. If I see a single bottle of something very special, I'll buy it.
You'll grab it.
I only have one bottle of 70 Chave Hermitage, for example.
Well, I think at this level, I mean, that's understandable, because that's what people,
and also with that many selections,
you know?
It's okay too. Because if I don't have the one bottle you're looking for, probably have something else that's gonna. You know, there's lots of wine down there.
So how do you manage it all? I mean, how do you remember all of those wines at that moment that the guest is saying, "What should I have?" How can you keep?
Well, it requires a great deal of honesty, because a lot of times I don't get to taste older vintage stuff, and I buy it on will or on
yeah. Like I think it's going to be good.
I think it's going to be good because other people who have tasted it tell me it's going to be good.
I can add it up in my mind. That vintage, that producer.
Right. Exactly. And so it takes a lot of intuition in that sense. But how do I mean, I got really good at Excel.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I mean, say, okay, so...
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to answer that because, you know, I've looked at a lot of programs for, like, inventory management, and a lot of the questions that auditors will ask, because I used to work in kind of in financial world and like worked with auditors. My sister is an auditor as well, and so like I've had this conversation with her, and she says, well, how could you be sure you know that something's, you know, out, or how many bottles of one thing or the other you have? And the answer is, well, because I bought it and I know, like I'm here every day. I see the wines being sold.
This is my house.
This is my house, and I have a feeling for it. For example, if I want to do you know, I get requests very often from the private dining department for recommendations for wines. I need to have enough for the party.
Right.
I kind of know the answer.
Right.
I don't need to be here necessarily. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes the exact price I need to look up and the such, but it's all there because at this point the bulk of the list is stuff that I bought and stuff that I've sourced. That's not the truth for every wine on the list, and there's definitely things where I still find, I'm looking through my inventory, I'm like, wow, I'm selling that for that much? Right. That's way too expensive. Or something. Like how did that happen? But it's in 2 years I haven't changed it, or something
like a gift that came through the centuries.
Right,
you know,
stuff happens.
Like, there it is.
Yeah, it's probably
present from generations past.
It's more than likely more than 10% of the list isn't stuff that I bought. So.
Sure. But sometimes I learned a lot from that. Like I open up something I just didn't know how incredible it was going to be. You know, somebody else's gem.
Yeah, that's definitely happened here a lot.